Hey everyone, and welcome to Rebel City Roundup, where I'll be giving you my take on the premier news and happenings in and around Cork this week. Sorry for not putting out a video last week, but I was out with a pretty bad sinus infection, and making videos when your entire head is clogged up is not really fun. Anyway, when I'm not knocked down by some kind of bug, I put out videos like this every Sunday. So if these types of roundups are right up your alley, please do consider subscribing. As you can see on the side of your screen, we have another full show today. So without further ado, let's get started. For our first story of the week, we really cannot avoid it. We need to talk about the terror attack in Christchurch, New Zealand. This attack, taking place on Friday local time, was aimed at 2 mosques and ended up with 49 worshippers being killed and 20 more being hospitalized. The main perpetrator of the attack, a right-wing neo-fascist, not only streamed the entire attack live on social media, he also published a manifesto before the attack outlining his twisted and completely rotten ideology. Now, I will not dignify this walking abortion by calling him out by his name or by sharing the video or the so-called manifesto. This rotten slime mold doesn't deserve the slightest bit of recognition. In fact, even this video could already be considered too much. However, the entire incident also shows that the right-wing agitation we've had over the last couple of years does not exist in a vacuum. Make no mistake, the responsibility for this act lies just as much with the Trumps, Farages and Orbans of this world as it does with the people who pulled the trigger. And if anyone still believes that political parties like UKIP, the AfD, the Front National and other of their ilk are in any way a real alternative or even a legitimate part of the political spectrum, just look at Christchurch and tell that to me to my face. Let's see where that gets you. Oh, and one more thing. If you don't like me positioning myself the way I am, if you don't like me speaking out against these neo-fascists, these neo-Nazis, please do yourself and me a favor. Take a few steps back, bend over, and literally fuck yourself. Unfortunately, our next story is equally depressing. On Sunday, March 10th, Ethiopian Airlines flight 302 crashed shortly after takeoff from Addis Ababa airport. All 157 passengers and crew aboard perished in the accident, unfortunately. The aircraft involved was one of Boeing's new 737 MAX 8 jets, introduced back in 2017. This particular aircraft involved in the crash was actually brand new, having only flown for the first time back in October 2018. Eerily, October 2018 was also the month in which a very similar crash to the one in Ethiopia occurred, when Lion Air flight JT610 crashed in Indonesia. It now looks increasingly likely as if a fault in the 737 MAX's control system, combined with poor manufacturer's conversion training for pilots moving from the older 737-800 series to the new MAX, was responsible for both crashes, as well as for a number of incidents in US airspace that resulted in a momentarily loss of aircraft control. Following this realization, airlines and aviation authorities worldwide have grounded the 737-8 MAX, and it looks like it might be a couple of months before the aircraft will be allowed to fly again. On a more sinister note, the US government apparently applied significant diplomatic pressure on the Ethiopian authorities to get both the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder investigated in the United States, despite the wishes of the Ethiopian government to have them investigated in Europe. In the end, though, this pressure thankfully came to naught, and the French BEA is now investigating the flight data recorders. Of course, the human aspect of the tragedy is already bad enough, with 157 people dead, and the trust in the aircraft completely destroyed. However, it could also actually end up being fatal for a number of airlines. Take Norwegian, for example, the only airline offering non-stop transatlantic services from Cork. Their flights are heavily dependent on the 737 MAX 8. I personally flew them to Providence last year. If this issue isn't resolved soon, we could see airlines like Norwegian, unfortunately, go out of business. What's your take on the story? Would you get on a 737 MAX 8 or MAX 9 at the moment, even after fixes to the issues have been applied? Be sure to put it in the comment section below. Now it's time for something a bit more cheerful. Anti-climate change rallies have hit all major cities in Ireland. As part of the rapidly growing Fridays for Future movement initiated by Swedish activist Greta Thunberg, 5,000 students, most of them from secondary schools, marched to the city centre here in Cork to demand that the Irish government finally acts on their obligations as part of the Paris Climate Accords. At this moment, Ireland is nowhere even near fulfilling those. In fact, the country is virtually addicted to cars, and any attempt to improve public transport or encourage cycling is met by a bone-chillingly hostile response. There's members of the Irish Parliament that openly deny climate change, while at the same time championing drunk driving and protecting disqualified drivers. Of course, in that spirit, these rallies were met by a vicious, hostile reaction by those self-proclaimed hard-working taxpayers. In fact, given some of the reactions, I'm a bit worried about the safety of those students. Back in Germany, the far-right AfD party has already tried to frame Greta Thunberg herself as being one of the inspirations for the Christchurch attack we talked about in our first story. And I wish I was making that up. Of course, it's easy for those 45-year-olds, 50, 60 or 70-year-olds to talk down and make fun of those students. I mean, they'll be safely dead when those students and their children will still have to suffer due to the failures that earlier generations have produced. As far as I'm concerned, as someone who doesn't have a car, doesn't have a driver's license, and who walks, cycles, or takes public transport wherever possible, I have only one thing to say to those students. Keep it up. Keep up the pressure. You're pissing off the right people. Stay loud, stay uncomfortable, and stay right up in the faces of those old, crusty bastards who are trying to put you down. And we'll end the week with another good news story. An Post, Ireland's national postal service, will soon provide permanent fixed addresses for people who are currently homeless. This service will provide them with a fixed address they can use for dealing with social services, the health service, getting school placements for their kids if they have any, to open a bank account or anything of that nature. All these services are currently beyond the reach of most homeless people. The service as such is being rolled out in cooperation with homeless services and charities throughout Ireland and should be up and running in a couple of weeks. Now, I'm traditionally skeptical of homeless charities here in Ireland. There's a lot of people who are just jumping on the bandwagon to profit from the cause while providing little to no services. This new initiative by An Post, however, that's a real game changer, as it'll provide a tangible benefit to homeless people and should make it a lot easier for at least some of them to get out of their current situation and into permanent housing, which is what they deserve. And as far as I'm concerned, more initiatives like this are needed instead of just pushing heartbreaking sob stories. What is needed is tangible steps. And that's the way it is this week. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to make this channel your home address here on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button and also the little notification bell. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the like button. Every like is a huge help for me. And also feel free to share this video with your friends, family, pets, dogs, whatever. If you have any questions, feedback or comments, be sure to put it in the comment section below. And feel free to check the video description for links to all of the stories as well as to my social media pages. Thank you once again very much for watching, and until next week, see you around!